Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, clouds of all ages, welcome to the 20th edition of the Sanctum Forecast. I can't believe that we've done so many of these. I remember when I did my first one, we were around Sanctum Forecast number 4. You will have to apologize for my low volume this time around. People are sleeping around me, so I do have to be polite, but that does not mean that we cannot have substantive and very fun discussions all about the future of Sanctum. First, of course, I'd love to say hello to some OG community members who show up every single dang week. We have XBT, G Cloud. I don't know how to pronounce this actually. Is it Elixbit? But anyways, G Cloud to you. Chocho is also OG Cloud fam. Love to have Chocho. Oh my goodness, is that Flog? Well, hey man, it's been a long time. It's good to see you. Let's fucking cloud. Sorry, this is supposed to be a family-friendly show. We also have Ginzu. Always good to have the Soulflare community joining us as well. Vibes as always. Lucio is just one of my favorites. Like he shows up every single week, and honestly makes my heart sing. So, anyways, we have a lot of things to cover today, so we're going to get this show on the road. And the first thing I'm going to start with is, of course, my name is Eno. I am the Chief Vibes Officer over at Sanctum. But more importantly, we have a very special guest that is going to be joining us for this forecast today, and he is going to be just helping us walk through a couple of things, and you'll see why we invited him in just a moment. But first, let's start with why are we here? Well, we're always here for the same reason every forecast. Number one, we're here to talk about all things in the Sanctosphere. So what exactly are we trying to talk about in the Sanctosphere? It's very simple. Number one, we want to talk about all the bullish news around Sanctum, right? Because there's so much stuff that the devs are cooking internally, so many partnerships, and like truly, we have a lot of things to celebrate. So like that's the number thing that we want to talk about. Number two, we want to talk about the most delightful products that are being built on Solana. Everyone, of course, remembers Wonderland Season 1 and all the products that we build, including Funtarchy. These are very easy to use products. They are products that are very fun to use, delightful, and like we, quite frankly, in my estimation, have the best design in Solana. And last but not least, we're here to talk about the Sanctum governance machine, which we believe is the best way to provide economic value to the Cloud token. And of course, if you are an OG Sanctum governance enjoyer, then you would know that we, of course, use Futarchy, which is powered by MetaDAO. Of course, we have our own modified version of Futarchy called Funtarchy for the funtards. But we'll talk more about that in just a second. And of course, we're here to do all of this, the bullish news, the delightful products, the Sanctum governance machine powered by MetaDAO, with the most earnest Cloud fam in the ecosystem. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, we're here to celebrate as one big family because honestly, like, what's the point of doing all this work and like working late nights and sacrificing time with our families if we're not having a good time? You guys know that I don't particularly care if token price is up or down, because like honestly, the most important thing is that you position yourself for opportunities in the long run, right? But today, I just want to say it is a very good day. We hit over $200 Solana. I'm looking at the price charts right now on my phone, and it looks like we're at $203. I'm just very happy. And it's not because of my bags. It's interesting. I actually have very little soul because I do a lot of beta plays. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that like the ecosystem was winning. The vibes are back. That means more trading volume. It means more attention for the ecosystem, and it means that the important stuff like governance is going to get some more attention, which is quite frankly what we need. Of course, we have a few house rules over here over at the forecast. Number one, we want you to hype up the chat with high energy. Number two, we want you to think long term, not short term. So I know I just broke my own rule by talking about token prices, but truly we're here to look at the long term. We need you to be thoughtful and kind too. And actually, that's one thing that I'm very thankful for with the Cloud family. I feel like everyone here is on the same page. Like certainly we can be critical. There's nothing wrong with being critical, but you can be polite and critical at the same time. And last but not least, let's have a damn good time. So let's get this show right on the road. If you don't want to, miss any Sanctum events, whether they be a forecast episode or like maybe a side event that we're running, I implore you to scan this QR code. You can sign up for our Luma page and you can see all the wonderful things that we have coming up. And of course, it's cloudy with a 100% chance of drip. So what I want y'all to do is to retweet the forecast and ask meaningful questions. Like we've debated this a lot internally, and quite frankly, like what makes Sanctum is high quality questions that we ask ourselves internally, and we want to spread that culture to the rest of Solana, and at least in our corner of Solana. And there's this one quote from Tim Ferriss that I deeply believe in, which is that the quality of your life will be judged by the quality of your questions. So if you ask high quality questions and seek the truth around those high quality questions, you can actually change your life. So in an effort to spread that culture, number one, please retweet the forecast and ask meaningful questions. We definitely will be taking, those questions and answering them. And we'll pick 3 winners for these Sanctum basketball jerseys. I absolutely love them. I'd like to highlight some of the past winners of the last 3 weeks. Number one, we have Chocho, Lucio, and Some Digits. Number 2, for the second batch last week, we have Nenye, Sumptuous, and Nicholas. And last but not least, these are some brand new batch winners that we're getting, that I'm announcing just now. These are people from who have been participating a lot recently. Tiggles, WMP, Soul Light, Soul Light. Polite soul. I can't pronounce that. But congratulations to you 3 for winning the Sanctum jerseys. So there are 9 winners of the Sanctum jerseys so far. We will be reaching out to you soon. We finally have enough people to meet the minimum order. If you're wondering why we haven't been moving on this quicker, it's because we need a minimum order of the jerseys before we can actually order them. And we should actually probably get one for a special guest that's going to be on stage very soon. I think he would. All right, let me see him. If you want one, could you nod your head in agreement? Or yeah, I think he's nodding. He's backstage. He's nodding his head in agreement. Okay, and of course, every week, we like to select the best forecast thread, and unfortunately, we do not have a forecast winner for this week. We are working to resolve that. Might have to announce a double winner for next week, so apologies for that. We've been very busy cooking over at Sanctum. Finally, okay, my favorite part. We are here to talk about 2 things today. Number 1 is obviously fun Tarky updates, and number 2 is like what to expect in the future, right? So without further ado, I would like to invite onto the stage a very special friend for the fun Tarky updates. He has been waiting very, very patiently backstage, and I really appreciate he's making it out today. Quite frankly, like I asked him. I think 24 hours ago if he would come on, and he's always just such a great friend and takes it very well. So please, everyone, get your fingers over the W key, and I want you to say a big W to our very good friend, Colin. Oh, what? Is this not? Yes, okay, Colin. Hi. Oh no. Hey, Colin, how are you?
Hey, good. It's good to see you.
Yes.
I was going to say Soul Price is good for all the LSTs as well that Sanctum has created out there. So higher Soul Price means all the LSTs are higher price too, right?
That is so true. So yeah, let's get W's in the chats for Colin and also MetaDAO. They have been absolutely wonderful partners for governance, and actually, Sanctum, fun fact, is the biggest amount of active voters of Futarchy, right? I think that our latest, it was over 1,800 unique addresses that have voted using Funtarchy. So these are people that have all earned very fat allocations of their staked cloud.
And they've used a novel governance mechanism. I mean, what in the history of the world, those are some of the first 1,800 individual people that have ever participated in a governance mechanism like this. How many times do you get to say that?
Exactly, right. Like I'm a very early user of Funtarchy. I'm a funtard. But like, so it's pretty early for you today. I mean, it's actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to use this opportunity to try to catch up with you a little bit on stream. How are you, man? How have you been?
Good. We've been, pushing a lot of stuff. We have Meta's token migration. We are trying to emulate the few Tarkies that are being launched with us right now. We've built a fundraising platform. I like to call it a fundraising platform just to differentiate from Launchpad, because this is truly money goes in. Founders get to build. The control of the token, the control of the money is through the governance itself. So it's not exactly a Launchpad where people get fees, they don't have any accountability. So we got that. And we've now had 2 projects launched through that. We had a recent one recently, which was OmniPair. And that founder came to us and said, hey, we'd like $300,000 to build this, raised 1.1 million. So it's changed his life, and he's been under development now. and looking for new founders there. We just put Futarchy AMM under audit. So it's been a lot of stuff behind the scenes working on it.
Wait, could you repeat that one more time? A Futarchy AMM?
Yes. So Futarchy is interesting for people that haven't heard about it. It is a conditional market where you have two markets, which is pass and fail. And if pass trades higher than fail, that's the decision, or the decision is executed as a yes. And because you have those two markets, we're still using token price to make a determination on what decision to make or not make. And you know, that means you have spot, pass, and fail that are all interconnected. And what we've done is created an AMM that lets you trade spot liquidity and conditional liquidity and use it for proposals. So solves a problem with liquidity with these proposals. Right now, you have to take cloud, you got to take dollars, and you got to put that together to create a proposal. In Futarchy AMM, it'd just be one big pool that then gets borrowed for the proposal each time so people can trade through it.
Okay, because we've actually talked about this, about some of the liquidity issues that sometimes proposals can run into. So this actually helps solve some of those infrastructure issues, like let's say like arbitrage, I suppose, of like let's say like S-Cloud versus like Cloud, right? So like would you say that, I'm actually genuinely curious, like I'm not asking you to kiss my butt, like would you say that the experiences that, or the feedback that you've gotten from projects like Sanctum have materially helped shape your point of view about like the necessity of the MetaDAO AMM, or is it kind of like other things that have made it seem more necessary?
You know, I'm building a product for people to use. So if I'm not listening to feedback, then I don't think that I'm a good founder. Absolutely, 100%. I think these are the important things that we take into consideration. I think raising proposals have been a pain point. We've tuned parameters. We've set these things arbitrarily. Nobody's built this before, right? So yeah, like I listen to everything everybody says. It's a matter of time to build out and evaluate how to build this safely, securely, and you know, bring it to market. So yeah, like it absolutely has influenced us. We want people to have deep liquidity to trade. And if they don't have that, then it's a poor user experience. And like we discussed arbitrage before, that's a poor user experience as well. So this goes to solve it. It's under audit, so we don't have it out today, but really soon.
Yeah, right. I guess another question I'd love to ask, and like this is just your opportunity to chill and also just talk about it. And it's even I mean, there's so much crap that happens in this space that it's really sad, because I have projects that I legitimately want to hear from, but the algorithm just is not putting them in my feed. Like tell us the latest that's going on with MetaDAO, specifically like the token migration proposal and like how that's going. What's the status? Like it's just if we're going to be talking about Futarchy or Funtarchy in the context of Sanctum, like I think it's really important to understand how the mother project is doing and like kind of what are the moves that you're making over there.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny because this proposal is talking about, you know, overhangs, problems with low float, high FTV tokens, and you know, it's pain points for people out here. I think we view tokens as, you know, an opportunity to mimic what works in traditional finance and, you know, shift the meta as well, right? Sanctum scored 40 out of 40 on the token transparency framework, which means that revenues value needs to accrue the token, that token holders have some, you know, guarantees there. And I think that that's important. So to do that, we think tokens need to more mimic equities, and the organizational structure needs to function like that. And what I mean by that is that Apple can go out and issue more shares to raise money to build out whatever they need to do. They can split shares. They can, you know, buy back and burn shares. And when we created the fundraising platform, these tokens are mintable through Futarchy. So it's an uncapped supply, but you can only go through the mechanism to issue more supply, dilute the existing supply through a governance proposal. So our token was no longer mintable, and we wanted to get more in line with how we think a crypto organization should exist. So this was a proposal that got raised, and then we shifted all the programs over to the new programs right now. So yeah, so okay. We redenominated because our launches start with 10 million tokens. And so we started with 10,000 tokens issued. So we only had 20,000 in supply, which was, it's cool. But I think people have expressed to me, and again, this is coming back to people listening to people, is unit bias. So if you can't own one because it's too expensive, then maybe people don't even look at it. So those were a few motivators there.
Yeah, I just actually, this is a very unrelated topic, but like, what do you think about unit bias as it pertains to Bitcoin, right? Because like clearly, I don't know, sometimes there's certain arguments that are very well reasoned from first principles and like also have a lot of supporting data to explain like why. Like Bonk has taken this to the extreme to where like they're one of the biggest meme coins on Solana, and still like to get a single Bonk, it's like a 0.00004. Like I may forget, like I'm not paying attention to the price right now, but you get my point, right? Like that's the extreme end of the spectrum. I'm just kind of wondering, like, do you really buy the unit bias arguments, or do you think it's just kind of almost like like a crypto wives' tale?
Yeah, I don't think it's a crypto's wives' tale. Like I think there are people that are truly affected by it. I think it's similar to like technical analysis. It works because so many people believe it works. So I'm not entirely convinced. But like I get it, right? Like in many cases, you don't want half a painting in your house. You don't want half of a sandwich, right? Like these are psychological things that humans believe in and function. So yeah, like, you know, you can say whatever you want about like people have loss aversion, right? You and I will get in a lane. If the other lane starts moving, we'll get in that lane, you know? So I think that there's a lot about human psychology here. So I don't want to discount it outright, but I do think for things that are infinitely divisible, or at least divisible to 9 decimals, that you have plenty of opportunity to scale in. But I know people that were like, how do I buy a Bitcoin? And then they say, oh, I can't buy one, so I can't get any of it. So I think there is something there.
I see. Okay, that's really interesting. Well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on unit bias, and I guess we'll get started right on what we came here to discuss, which is actually our latest Fun Tarkies proposal. And so for people who are wondering like why we brought Colin here, like obviously he's one of the founders of MetaDAO, who, you know, and MetaDAO powers our governance solution. Like if it wasn't for MetaDAO, like we wouldn't have a governance solution. And so it just makes a lot of sense because Colin sees a lot of proposals, right? And he sees them play out not only in Sanctum, but across like multiple communities, right? So like, what are some of the other communities that have promising futarchies in your opinion?
I think Aura's been quite interesting with their proposals, right? Like a lot of controversial things and a lot of adversarial trading. So they brought stuff up that said, hey, we're going to impact miners in a big way because these miners aren't sharing their code and people can't compete. So it's been becoming unfair. And so the miners came in and traded the proposal to reject it. But ultimately the OR team got the miners to open source the code. So it's interesting outcomes that you get even through like this competitive nature of like markets being the arbiters of decision making.
Why did I not hear more about this drama? Oh man, I love drama like that. That is great. They actually like used futarchy as pressure to get them to open source the code. That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And then, you know, like capital's at risk there, right? So the miners had to show up and put up, and, you know, the team had to show up and put up. So it's quite interesting to see that versus unilaterally making a decision and not asking for that opinion or not even having that chance to do it. Yeah, I think that's been some of the more, that was the more interesting ones. And then Mountain Capital has been an interesting exploration into futarchy governed liquid fund. So that was the first fundraise on the platform. It raised 5.7 million, And the two successful proposals were buyback, because the token was trading below its asset value, so the cash value it had in its treasury. And so a community member raised a proposal to buy back. And so we took, I think, a total of 2.5 million and bought back to try to support it above NAV, or at NAV and net asset value. And then proposals to make investments have all failed. So it's quite interesting to see, because a liquid fund is a completely different thesis than a product or project or team, right? This is something that says, hey, we're going to make investments. Investments should return in excess of what we're doing. And so it's an interesting experiment, and excited to see like what happens and showcase what happens when maybe a Futarchy winds down, and how that affects people and what that looks like. We've got a tagline on our platform that says unruggable ICOs. So now you get to see how an unruggable ICO is not ruggable. So
yeah, especially if it's trading under NAV, it's like, bro, I got the cash, I'm just gonna scoop. Thank you for the free tokens.
Yeah, and like, here's the interesting thing with a lot of this like market dynamics is, if it trades below NAV long enough and you acquire it, you as an individual that holds that token have the incentive to say, actually, I want this to wind down. And I've built up inventory for long enough that like that is the net benefit for me. And so I would be trading proposals that would make winding that down more complex. So you get kind of these interesting incentives that start to emerge within something like a liquid fund specifically, I think, and that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, right. And I think there's a lot of folks here who might not actually be aware of how Funtarchy works, because like it's been a while since we've had our last governance proposal. So like I always give the Futarchy pitch as such, which is that in normal democracy, you have a very simple system of voting yes or no, which is objectively better than monarchy or tyranny, to give people a voice, right? And sometimes like that power to say yes or no might be limited to a certain like oligarchy, or like maybe a patrician class that owns land, right? But still, right, like that was, and so far we've been basically iterating on different variations of democracy, right? Voting yes or no. But with Futarchy, market-based decision making, it really is not a question of yes or no. What you're really doing is playing this game of guess the economic value, right? And purely the whole purpose of Futarchy is to price things, right? So it is like in I mean, the more that you know, the more accurate your guess is, but it is a guessing game, right? So if this proposal were to pass, like as a thinking person who has access to information, whether it be public or private, right, you would be able to price a proposal, right? Like, so if I had a proposal that said, like, we're going to spend $100 to throw a party over at Colin's house, first of all, that'd be a shitty party because it would only be $100, but it would be a really great party because the company would be amazing. So it's just kind of like this balancing act of like, okay, well, I spent $100, so I can model that out. Like, how much money does that take away from the treasury? Or like, do I have to sell cloud tokens to pay for that party? So like, but then you also balance that against like, well, but Colin is like a huge figure in the space, and like his words actually have meaning. And so like actually getting a whole bunch of people in Colin's house to throw this party, these people actually have huge bags. So even though we spent $100 and had to sell cloud, and you can model that, you also can model like, well, these whales have like, let's say $1 million amongst them that they're willing to spend on cloud, and potentially depending on how this party goes, right? So like that is the guessing game that we're playing with Futarchy, right? It's not an answer of yes or no. It's like, how much economic value does a proposal bring to a token? Would you say that's an accurate description of Funtarchy or Futarchy, or do you have a different way that you'd like to describe it?
No. I think you're right. I think value that it brings or value that it destroys are like key questions there, right? Like what is the opportunity cost for taking risk, right, versus not taking it? Because you could have a proposal that's like, we don't know, but it's an opportunity, and if we don't take opportunities, then we stagnate and we die. And then like what you highlighted there is just information and coding in a market, right? Like you bring your knowledge, and then you you set a price. And, that's the cool thing about a market, is it resolves to one unit. So it doesn't matter if you did sophisticated analysis and you said, this is the price, right? Like now that is encoded in the market, and that's the information that you get from it without having to go ask experts and surveys and then produce a report and then do an analysis and get somebody to make a judgment call, right? The market is the arbiter there. And I think that that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that is like super rad, actually. And so I'd actually like to just set the tone here for everybody on the forecast. This is not a typical forecast where it's like super hype and oh my God, look at all these product announcements. We're actually just going to be walking through this Funtarchy proposal and just seeing what people think, answering questions that people might have, as well as just getting Colin's live reaction. And I will be asking stupid questions throughout the process because like I actually want to kind of I don't how do I put this? I want to learn on the go with you live so that like any questions that people may have, like we're actually just taking you guys through the entire thought process from start to finish, right? So number one, we have to talk about like what's the context here. Well, if you missed our last forecast, you should definitely check it out. So you can scan this QR code or just like go to the Sanctum Twitter. We did a very long deep dive on Operation Rip the Band-Aid, which was written by our very, very good friend, James Hanley. Colin, have you ever had the chance to meet James?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I
knew James in the context of Drift before, and then I ran into him in Vietnam. So he and I had like an hour-long chat.
Yeah. He is an absolutely phenomenal human being. We love James. He's one of our best community members here at Sanctum. And he took the time to write this proposal and write it in the research forum. So like we really appreciate that he took the time to do so. And so again, like if you guys want to go through that proposal that we wrote with James, or excuse me, what am I even talking about? If you want to go through the proposal that James wrote, and I will talk to you what I meant by that. Like FP did write some comments on the proposal. We'll go through that live. But you can see the whole video of that discussion here on this QR code. So really implore you guys to check that out. And of course, like the informal name for this proposal was Operation Rip the Band-Aid. Some people have been making fun of James's Australian English, and like they said they want to add the word off. Does your brain also do that, where you want to add the word off to this phrase, rip the Band-Aid off?
Yes. There's also like taken to hospital, where I'm like the hospital. If you like Canada and other countries say somebody was taken to hospital, I'm like, and then you're like, actually the grammar's correct, but we had prefixes.
Yeah. Where's the article, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, we are now renaming Operation Rip the Band-Aid Off to Cloud 005. Come on. All right, here we go. Cloud 005. Should Sanctum offer investors early unlocks of their cloud? If you want to see this proposal, and we will be going through this live, you should definitely scan this QR code. It will actually take you to this handy dandy website, which is research.sanctum.so. Here is our very sexy James Hanley the Manly. And as I was saying before, FP has actually written some comments on this proposal. This is what I meant by we wrote the proposal together. Obviously, this proposal was actually written by James. And thanks to the Cloud Fam community member James Hanley for proposing this. James has furnished me. This FP has very particular like British Singaporean English, he's furnished me with the V2 proposal, and I have edited the Have you furnished anything to anybody before, Colin?
No, but Prophet does make sure that I know that I'm incredibly verbose.
Can I furnish you half a sandwich?
I have a lot of
I'm sorry for
here.
This is the problem when you get two Americans on the stream. We just start making fun of everyone else's English, like the Aussies, the Singaporeans. I'm such an asshole. I apologize. Okay, but anyways, James has furnished me with a V2 proposal, and I have edited the post with his permission. This is all James's original language. I have added some asides in italics that gives my point of view from the Sanctum team. Any reference to I refers to James, and us, the Cloud fam. Sincerely, FP. So we will be going over this, live later. But if you want to view this for yourself, then you should definitely check out the slides and scan this QR code. By the way, we have over 400 people on the stream. I really appreciate you guys. Every single one of you count, and hope you can help spread the word for CLOUD-005. We will definitely be going over this proposal. But first, let's go over like the broad strokes of this proposal. Number one, the 9% of the token supply from the investor allocation is currently unlocking monthly for the next 24 months. So let me show you this nifty graphic over here. You can see indeed that we had 13% of our tokens that were allocated to investors. 33% or a third of those tokens have already been unlocked like about last month, right? So like that has already been distributed to early investors of Sanctum. And now what's left is 9% of the token supply. So originally we had this 13% that was available to all investors, not available, but they earned it by investing in Sanctum. And now there's 9% of that token supply that's unlocking over the next 2 years, so 24 months. And the idea behind Cloud-005 is that we would offer some of these, actually all of these investors, immediate unlocks on the remaining 2/3 of their tokens, while forfeiting 30% of those remaining tokens to the Sanctum Reserve, right? And to be very clear, the Sanctum Reserve would be controlled by the Sanctum team and not, like, let's say, the Community Reserve. And last but not least, if this were to succeed, this means that we could get up to an additional 27 million additional cloud for the Sanctum Reserve and a healthier long-term token supply. So with this background, I'm just going to pause here and maybe even just allow people to ask questions to us. Or if Colin, for example, you have a question about the proposal, would love to just walk ourselves through it.
Yeah, no, I think the thesis is sound, right? Like, what James has brought up in the proposal is an overhang, right? And having these emissions go out at some regular interval over a 2-year period leaves a lot of questions in people's minds, I can imagine, right? So the thesis is there. Like, does that discourage you from buying the token today is a fundamental question. What are those investors' interests in that time? These are all interesting questions that are brought by this proposal, and solutions for how to maybe deal with that, or at least eliminate some confusion or lack of clarity for people that are interested in cloud.
Yeah, right. So, phrased in a different way, this overhang is essentially like, put it from the perspective of a new investor who is very bullish on Sanctum. They watch the forecast. They're learning all about these amazing things that we're doing with LSTs and transaction routing with Gateway, the acquisition of Ironforge, our validator as a service product. So imagine that this new investor is getting super excited about the Sanctosphere, right? But then they read it all up on our tokenomics as they're doing their due diligence. And as they read up on our tokenomics, they go, wait, what the heck? There's 9% of the supply that the investors will be unlocking over the next 24 months. And that 9% is what, as you referred to as the overhang, is a deterrent for some investors, right? Because there's this big open question of like, am I exit liquidity if I if I invest in this protocol? And nobody wants to be exit liquidity for investors who have earned their allocation, but at the same time are going to be ostensibly dumping into the market every month over the next 24 months, right? So it's just a huge open question, and which is why the proposal was originally named "Rip the Band-Aid Off," because God dang it, like, we just want to get this over with. Like, it's short-term pain for long-term benefit. So is there anything else you want to add there, and just in terms of casual observations about the proposal?
Yeah, I think one of the things that and I reached out to you for this, which was like, how many of the investors are like interested in this? So that's another big question for me, because if you do get to that number up to 27 million, should definitely impact my decision making on that. If you get 50% participation, that's probably great. If you get less, is it as impactful? Do you solve it with this, or do you have to go back to the drawing board and try to figure something else out?
Yeah. We actually have a really good question from an OG community member who's like here all the time, Quack, also a great monkey. He's asking, is this not the case for most DeFi protocols though, like which have far superior price action than us? Like genuinely curious. Like what are your thoughts on this? Do you feel like generally speaking, like most DeFi protocols are just dealing with large unlocks all the time. It's just not talked about all that much.
Yeah, I think, or the threat of it as well, right? Like when you have a DAO that has control over a significant amount of the tokens and has an aggressive mission schedule, like that can be a detriment to people that want to buy the token. And I think like the shifting experience here from people that acquire and own and hold tokens has been, what rights do I have? What does the team plan to do? And how much access does the team have versus, like me being able to influence that? And what we've seen teams start to do is buy back and burn, or teams have been consistently doing this. And when their revenues are up, they buy more and do more with it. But yeah, like all the legacy teams have this, right? Like all of this exists. And whether it's like publicly, publicly available knowledge or not, it's a little bit obtuse, then yeah, like different people have different priorities. Different people have different views on like the fundamentals of it. But yeah, this is certainly there. It's Cloud is starting to enter that phase though, whereas other people have already been in that phase for a while. So I think that could probably be a little bit like what differentiates this versus where other people are.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting if you look at the cloud price chart because you can actually see the price movements going into the unlocks, right? I almost feel like the price is super depressed right now, almost specifically because I mean, this is just my theory based on what I'm seeing on the charts. Like, this could just be coincidence, but I don't really believe in coincidences when it comes to price charts. Everything is there for a reason. But I do feel like if you look at the price chart, you can see the price like dip almost and then hold because the market has priced in the next 2 years of like if you believe in the efficient market hypothesis, which I think is a little extreme because I mean I don't know how you feel about it, Colin. I'd actually love to get your take here, but like the efficient market hypothesis is that like everything like going into like the next 2 years is already priced into your token like at all times, right? If there's information out there, whether it be public or private, like people with access to capital will act on that information and like they'll do it up until like I don't know why 2 years is again that feels a little bit long to me. I don't really know, but like what are your thoughts on like the efficient market hypothesis?
I think it works until it doesn't. I think we build models that like help us reason about the world, but like there's an adage in trading that is the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, right? And that's very true, right? Like we've had bubbles that make no sense to sophisticated investors, and sophisticated investors are sitting there and they're like, the market is completely irrational here. But like you can make a bet, but if you can't afford to hold that bet for for a long time, and it could last a long time. My favorite example is the tulips bubble, where people were buying tulip bulbs. Like people were in a craze, or like I lived through the Beanie Baby craze at McDonald's and those things. So like people are irrational. So I don't believe it's completely efficient markets here. And I think
Beanie
crypto has so many places to put your money. So I think that the attention economy is real in crypto. And so, things that may seem boring are just not interesting to the average crypto investor when the promise of, 100x on my next pump token is like the mentality of the typical investor that exists here. So yeah, like I think it's I think it's kind of true sometimes and then not true in a lot of ways. But I do think you're right on, hey, this information is priced in, at least what we know right now. And what can we do to change that sentiment is a big question. And I think taking a stab at doing a proposal like this is an important directional indicator to say, hey, we see this and here's an idea. And then, like, this isn't our last idea for that. And you can see it with teams that are like, do we buy back and hold? Do we quit emitting tokens for these purposes? Do we utilize cash reserves instead? Do we buy back and burn tokens? Those are all interesting questions that people are doing or implementing right now.
Yeah. And we actually have a great question from a community member who is pointing out the obvious that I think you and I had talked about before this stream, and also other folks have pointed this out to us, is like, how is this vote proposal not going to fail if in the short term the price would go down if passed? Now, I see why on the surface level that seems obvious, right? But actually baked into this point of view are several assumptions, right? So assumption number one is that any investor is going to take this deal, right? Like that's the first assumption that's being made here. And option number two is that it assumes that the investor is going to sell those tokens as opposed to like staking them or and like trying to grow their bag through active ASR participation. Like there's a lot of different like we don't have like a exact point of view until we actually do this to like reach out to investors. And the irony here is that like I think our community like wants us to like do all the research. You see this not just for this proposal, but you actually see this for all proposals across Futarchy. Is like the number one piece of feedback that you get on a proposal is more information because like people just crave more information. Like and I think that's a feature, not a bug of Futarchy. It's like it actually forces you to like to think about it, and people will just ask the very obvious questions of like, well, I don't know XYZ, so like why the heck, like how am I even supposed to vote on this, right? So what's your take on this question though? Like how is this vote proposal just not going to immediately fail? Like in my opinion, it has too many baked in assumptions into it, but like I also don't disagree that like this is one of the many outcomes that are possible.
Yeah, and so you say what is the relative difference in price between the two, right? Like failing it or not failing it. So it's failing it or passing it. So you could say, hey, passing this, we think that this will depress the price, but we think that if you don't pass it, the price is going to be like, I'm going to price it in more like, I'm going to price in these unlocks more realistically, right? So you know what the fundamental outcome is, which is a 9% increase in the circulating supply, right? So if you fail this, that is going to happen. Like that is definitely, at least in the current, there's no other proposals right now, but that will happen. So you say, if we take this chance, is that better long term? And it is asking you to forecast like long term if that short term bump is going to be worse or better than the long-term like bleed, basically. So I think you could think about it in those two ways, where the decision could net negatively impact the price short term, but the decision not to do it may net negatively impact the price long term. And so that difference there, even if pass is trading lower than spot price and fail is trading much lower, right? So that divergence, that split right there, I think is important.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that I hadn't thought of before. So just to recap what you're saying, I think what I heard is essentially like, look, either way, whether it's pass or fail, this proposal actually might be net negative for cloud in the short term, right? But really we have to weigh two different scenarios here. The one in which we bleed slowly over 2 years, or the one in which like we have short-term pain followed by what we hope will be a lack of overhang. I mean, it's a lack of overhang that investors are willing to buy into, right? So that's what you're talking
you
about.
have uncertainty over the long term, and then you have certainty in the short term. And I think that is the difference in price that you'll see in this market. So I don't have a forecast here on like what it looks like, but you could say, yes, I know that but the 30% is important to me. And that 30% is going to be locked up for an additional 2 years and not touched. So it'd be a blip and then we get to recover. And that's what I'm trying to forecast there.
Right, right. So I actually think it would be really important to read some of FP's comments here and to go through the proposal. So just going back to this proposal again, this is James's proposal, but FP has added italics to certain comments so that it's very clear, what he's, what is Sanctum's point of view. And again, the TLDR, there is a 9% of the token supply from investors that will be unlocking over the next 24 months. And our request is that they forfeit 30% of their cloud to the team reserve. In terms of a general overview, of course, this is just a graph of our tokenomics.
Can you go back up real quick? I want to just highlight the last or the last part of that. The team says they're not going to redistribute that for at least the next 24 months. So the uncertainty on what investors are going to do over 24 months is solved. And then the team offers a guarantee that says for 24 months, now you know what's going to happen. And I think that that's the important thing that I would surface out of this, that says we don't know what that 30% would do in the next 24 months. And we still don't know what the investors are going to do. But I can at least guarantee for that 30%, this is the certainty that you're going to get, that for the next 24 months, that amount is not going to be impacted.
Okay, so this is I love seeing how futards think. I am a baby futard, and I definitely want to learn to be more like Colin. But basically, what you're saying is that there's now. So previously, if we don't pass this proposal, there is 100% uncertainty over 100% of the 9%. So said less confusingly, there is 100% uncertainty about what the heck investors are going to do with their tokens, right?
Yes.
Whereas if we pass this proposal, there's actually 30% certainty of what's going to happen to those tokens. They are going to be locked into a portion of a team, maybe some wallet that we don't touch for the next 2 years, right? So there's certainty about what is going to happen to those tokens, which is nothing. We're not selling them, we're not OTCing them, we're not messing with them, we're not using them for incentives, nothing. There is absolute certainty about what's happening to those tokens. The other 70% is kind of up for grabs, right? What exactly is are they going to stake it? Are they just going to hold it? Are they going to use it in DeFi? Are they going to sell them? I mean, that's totally their prerogative. So that's what you're saying, is that we get more certainty with this proposal for a specific allocation of tokens, correct?
Yeah. So you could price in short term, even if that hit the market, that would not be good, but at least it's not the full 9% supply that gets, you now create a new class of investors that may find it more appetizing, right? At that point. So I think you hit the nail on the head there, that, percentage of certainty is important to reference out of here. That gives you some insight into what you're trying to do here.
Yeah. And of course, we have one of the co-founders of Sanctum here in the chat. I think he's enjoying watching us discuss this governance proposal, and I just have to bring this up. I don't mean to distract you from this important discussion, but Nalik, you are looking very handsome on this fateful night. I do agree. I think that Colin is looking very, very handsome today.
I love the Sanctum crew. It's funny how it's expanded. And I always knew them as the Socian boys, because it felt like they were always in a group running around the conferences. So I remember back in those days. But thanks, Jay, I appreciate it.
And also Lucio, who is an OG Cloud fam member, says, "Good thing he doesn't use a mask like Prophet. Lol, gives Metadao a proper face."
We built that mask for him because he would not go up on stage unless he had something. And so I said, well, I'm not going to be the one that goes up on stage. So we'll build the entire character out for you. So it's funny. Investors have had the same thing. They think that I'm not doxxed. So, I'll get on a video call and they'll be like, oh, I'm like, here's my LinkedIn. You can find me wherever you want.
Oh, My goodness, now even FP is glazing la. Colin is looking super handsome. Oh my god. I do agree though. Colin is a very good looking gentleman. Though you have one of those faces, by the way, where depending on how you grow your facial hair, you look completely different, right? Like for me, mustache on, mustache off, this is the same face, guys. You know exactly what I look like, right? But like for a while, Colin had this kind of a Wyatt Earp mustache, right? That was just so like it went all the way from here down to like his like it was like a chin strap almost. It was like
Yep.
huge, right? This mustache. How wow, I'm so jealous. Your facial hair just grows so fast.
You know, it took
Um,
many years to get there, to get to that level. And before the mustache, I had a huge beard when I first entered Solana.
yeah, actually, it's really fun to look at your Telegram because you actually have pictures that go all the way back.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I remember once that you messaged me, like going into, I believe it was Malaysia last year, for the startup village, and I didn't answer your messages because I didn't know it was you because the picture was so different from like my image of who you are as a person. I was like, who's this like rando with like a beard talking to me? Like I don't know this guy, and I was like, oh, that's freaking Colin. Okay. By the way, and Portalus, I'm sorry, he shaved off Virgo, and I love how like, what the fuck did I just log into? Okay, I blame Jay for this because like we were having like a very productive governance discussion, and then like, now this has just gone completely off the rails. I okay, so yeah, going into this discussion of like cloud, we are talking about Cloud 005, and of course, this proposal is that we like our investors or to offer to our investors a deal in which they forfeit 30% of their tokens. And in exchange, they get all of those tokens immediately. We believe that this is the best way to quote unquote rip the band aid off. Better certainty over the long term over the next 24 months, and a portion of those tokens would be locked essentially over the next 24 months. We would not be touching them. So more certainty for a portion. And again, this ultimately means that increase of up to 27 million additional cloud to the team reserve. So skimming over some details over here, of course, is just an accounting of the cloud allocation and supply. And then moving forward, of course, the proposal, this is just the the recap that we just gave. No need to go over that again. What discount mechanism should be applied to these early investor inlocks? We covered this last week, but I'd like to emphasize this again. 30% is not arbitrary. In fact, we are benchmarking this against existing OTC deals. So typically what you see for OTC deals is for people who sell their allocations of tokens that are locked, they get anywhere from a 50 to 70% discount on those tokens. So essentially what we're saying here is that like, okay, we don't want to be so harsh. Like we don't want to take away 50 or 70% of the tokens that our investors have earned by believing in us very, very early. That seems a little bit harsh. And so James settled on 30%. And the reason why James settled on 30% is because it's enough to be interesting to Sanctum and the Sanctum Reserve, but it's not so much that we're being disrespectful to our partners. It actually is quite generous, especially if you look at how we're benchmarking against existing deals. Do you have any comments on this 30%? Like, do you personally think that this is a little high, a little low? I'd love to give your unfiltered feedback on this.
Yeah, this is a great chance for Few Turkey too. So Mountain Capital had a proposal to buy Radium at a 40% discount before the Bonk Launchpad and everything else. So that shows you what teams are willing to do for aligned parties. That proposal unfortunately failed, but it shows you what teams are out there doing. Preferential deal access for people that want to buy in size. These are things that are just natural, normal. So 30% seems reasonable compared to like up to 70% discount for those things. So I think it's important to understand that. And it does happen like that. So 30% is better than 40%. So that showcases it.
And actually, this is a huge news flash that people should really pay attention to. I was unsure whether or not we would be able to disclose this in public, but we're not going to name any of these investors, so I think that makes us okay. This is more data for everybody, right? There have actually been people who have been asking questions that I've been actively ignoring, but not because I don't want to answer the question, but because I was waiting for this moment to reveal it. So there have been multiple variations of this question, and people have been asking, like, how many investors are ready to take this offer? Like, obviously, we wanted to be respectful to the DAO. And by the DAO, I'm referring to all of you, the people who are participating in Funtarchy and staking your cloud. We wanted to be respectful in the sense that, like, we didn't want to go behind your back and just like talk to all the investors and like do all the BD for the proposal before you guys have even had a chance to say anything. But that being said, you guys made it very clear to us on the last stream last week that you needed us to give you a little bit more information and kind of do a temperature check. So we settled for right in the middle. We didn't talk to everybody because, again, we want to be respectful to the decisions of the DAO, but we also wanted to do enough due diligence to actually come back to you with some data. So we can't disclose like the amount of investors or who exactly we were talking to, but what we can say is that a few investors have already told us that they will not be taking the deal as they are long-term bullish on Sanctum. I doubt we'll get many takers with a 30% discount. Because these people are bullish on Sanctum. That's why they invested us in the dang first place. And, you know, they don't want to take the 30% discount because they think it's quite significant, even though it is generous. So that just gives you a sense of like where they're at. And some of you might be even thinking, and I think this is a very valid question. Well, dang it, like if people don't want to take the offer, like why even vote on the proposal, right? And I think that there are many legitimate reasons why we need to vote on this proposal. The first of which, of course, is that if we make it public that we as a company and as a community have decided to offer this like very generous like kind of 30%. Again, 30% is generous in the context of OTC deals. This very generous offer to unlock all of the tokens for investors, and they didn't take it. That is an extremely bullish signal for like there's a lot of uncertainty right now around overhang, right? So we need to counter this narrative. We have to have something credible to say to investors, future investors. And one of the more credible things that you could say to help neutralize this narrative is like, actually, we did offer to unlock all these tokens for investors, and they just didn't take it because they didn't want to sell the tokens. They just wanted to hold it. So like that is a reason to pass this proposal, even if people don't end up taking the deal. But that is a data point that I think is worth considering. Do you have any comments there, Colin?
Well, I think, churn is important, even though it's like viewed negatively. Churn in investors is important. So, like even having one person that doesn't believe in cloud removed from the, like their participation or their investment is one less person that's going to be out there, like having an unfavorable opinion. So, like I do agree with that thesis there that says like, hey, if you want to take this, it's there for you. And like we're happy to give these terms and do this. And even if it's like one person that takes it, it's one less person that doesn't believe or doesn't have the long-term vision.
Yeah, because like one thing that I've learned being a part of this community and having people yell at me about cloud every day is people hate uncertainty. Okay, and so I mean, like it's uncertainty is death to investors, right? And we do not live in a certain world. I'm sorry to break that to everybody. Like if everything was certain, then there would be no opportunity, right? Because like the opportunity comes from taking risk. But that being, yes, exactly, Nenye. Always think long term. But we have to be willing to, I think, take calculated risk, especially if that calculated risk will bring more certainty to a token, right? So if it means that we can say credibly that all the paper-handed investors are out now, and all that we have left are, diamond hands, then that is an objectively good thing for not only current cloud holders, but people who are thinking about investing. Like I'm sure that there are a bunch of people who are looking at cloud right now and they're like, man, like I'm looking at this token unlock like 9% of the supply over the next 2 years. Like, I don't know about that. If you can give them a credible answer, which is like, well, actually, These people decided not to take the deal. They want to hold Cloud for the long term. You are safe buying it, this asset. You will not be exit liquidity. Like, that is just more certainty for investors, and that's certainly that's what we want to aim for. I believe is just more certainty. So moving forward, right, where will the forfeited Cloud go? Cloud will be forfeited by investors opting in, which will be returned to the team reserve. And this is the point that Colin had highlighted earlier, and FP felt that it was so nice that FP had to say it twice, which is that the Sanctum team will not redistribute this Cloud, at least for the next 24 months. Like, how much weight do you put onto something like this? Like, why was this a piece of information that your eyes just like immediately, like, because I missed it in the first mention, actually, but like it immediately caught your eye. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, why was that something that you just like immediately, felt was important to highlight?
Yeah. So if you put your investor hat on for a bit, you want to know what's going to happen with tokens. And the more you know, the better off you can like model or have your thesis around. And something in crypto that's really, really hard to do is know what founders, what teams, what people are doing with their tokens, right? Like Sanctum obviously participated in the token transparency framework. So said, hey, here's our commitment. Here's the things. Blockworks verified that stuff. So like out of all the tokens, you can trust that Sanctum's going to do what they say they're going to do and that things are monitored the way that they could. But, like there isn't a dashboard that has everybody, like what's this wallet doing today? So investors spend a lot of their time watching, like going through all the transaction history, finding these wallets and saying like, I think that this is the founder's wallet. I want to know when they're going to move tokens and do things. And that can be a large portion of their time. So as an investor, the more information you give me with that, it's just like a breath of fresh air, right? Because I'm like, okay, I don't have to go digging. I don't have to ask the team. I don't have to like surface this information. It has been surfaced for me. And now I know what I can think about for the next 2 years or 24 months.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. So more certainty.
Yeah. Yeah. And as an investor, right? Like if Coca-Cola is going to do something, you want to know ahead of time because that affects your today's price. So it's just to do with how you think about things. And then, like your difficulty as a investor in this ecosystem of trying to surface this information is like extremely, extremely hard. And when it's offered up like this on a silver plate, it's something that you notice right away.
It's very rare, I suppose, in this ecosystem. So moving on, another legitimate question, and this might be a point of debate, is like, why should the Cloud go to the team reserve as opposed to, like, let's say the community pool, right? Well, the original Cloud was split 60-40, 60 on the team side and 40% on the community side. And the original investor allocation at the core of this proposal is actually a subset of the team side of this 60-40 pie. Meaning that the tokens that were sold to investors didn't come from the community allocation, actually came directly from the team. So tokens that could have been used to hire more talent or like just grow the team were actually used to fund the project in the very beginning, and so were sold to investors. And at present, the community reserve accounts for 30% of the total token supply, where the team strategic reserve accounts for only 11% in comparison. So the team reserve is already like much smaller by a factor of 2/3. For the sake of fairness, that might be another way to look at it. And lastly, the team reserve represents the best opportunity for potential return of all Cloud holders, as the Sanctum core team is best placed to put these tokens to work on strategic initiatives. Incentives or developing a new product or making a strategic acquisition, et cetera, right? So this is James's logic for it, but I could also see a lot of healthy debate here. Do you have any notes here on like what would you think is fair, by the way? Like, and feel free to give your unfiltered opinion. We're here to like actually listen to what people think, not shove our own opinions in their throats.
Yeah, I have firsthand experience on like what burning tokens does to like your future opportunity. I was involved in Invictus Discord and Invictus, which was a rebasing reserve stablecoin, and to boost APY, they burned a bunch of tokens, which is good in the short term, but bad in the long term because you had to spin down the protocol. So yeah, like it's probably like a blessing and a curse to try to figure this out now. But cash in the bank or tokens in the bank is just future opportunity, and it's also uncertainty for the like token holders because that supply could come into circulation. And so it's a blessing and a curse, but the flexibility for a startup and somebody that wants to do something big and impactful in the ecosystem, it does, like those are valid questions and considerations to weigh against each other, right? And so if the team says for 24 months we won't touch this, at least that's off the plate for 24 months. Crypto moves at rapid pace. It feels like you and I saw each other in Vietnam. It feels like a year ago already. So who knows what 24 months looks like, and it may be nice to have that to be able to do a strategic acquisition or to build a product line or to bring on additional team members that you may need to do. So I think you put on the two hats. If I want this company to succeed, what are the things that I can put in its arsenal to be successful? And if as an investor, what do I want to see? Is that enough? Is it too little? And each investor is going to have a different thesis on that. But I think that this is reasonable. And the team strategic reserve could also be burned as well as like a way to do this too. So it doesn't necessarily mean that for sure will come into circulation, and the team will obviously solicit feedback from the community and from investors to try to figure out what best to do with that.
Yeah. I mean, since we're already committed to having those tokens, not come into play for the next 2 years, that gives us 2 years to figure out what to do with those tokens, right? Like, certainly we have the option. Like, let me put it this way. If we were to burn the tokens immediately, it removes all options from the table, right? So like it's short-term gain, but then it's also like you don't have any options. Whereas like if you keep them in, locked into a wallet for 2 years, like it gives you two times to see how Sanctum plays out, right? So at that moment in time, like in 2 years, it might make a lot of sense just to burn those tokens, but also conversely, it might make a lot of sense to use those tokens. It really just depends on where Sanctum is as a company. But if we're doing our jobs right, like it would be. I would love to be in a position where it's just like strategically advantageous for us to be like, you know what, screw it, we're just burning all those tokens.
Yeah, and if you carve them out in a community, it's much harder to say and do things definitively there. So I think that that's the other thing. The team cannot make a commitment like they've done here with community tokens. I don't think that would be appropriate. So I think that like where it goes is also important.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. It's kind of psychological, right? I mean, it's because you're putting the tokens in the community allocation. You need the community's permission to do things, but I think we would still ask and solicit feedback, even if it was under the team's control to make the final decision. But it's just like there's almost this feeling of like if you burn tokens from the team reserve, it doesn't feel like theft. But if you burn tokens from the community reserve, it somehow feels like theft, even though it's like the same tokens. It's just putting them into a different part of the pie. But for some reason, like one of them is like certainly going to feel more like psychologically like you're stealing from me. It's like, wait, what? Like, what the heck?
And you deal with psychology, human psychology, all day, every day in this ecosystem. So here you are.
You and me both, brother. Okay, so how should the forfeited cloud be used? I'm actually gonna skim over this part because it's really unclear, truly, like how many tokens there will be up for grabs. Like we don't even know how many people are gonna take this deal. Like it could actually be like super inconsequential. But like our initial temperature check has shown that like nobody has shown any interest in actually taking this deal, which I think is still bullish to like pass this proposal and then to be like, yeah, but nobody took the deal. So like that actually gives us more certainty because we know that like they had the option to take this deal and they didn't, which means we can tell people very credibly that like we know what's going to happen in the short term, which is that like they are not going to be selling these tokens, which is great. Should investors be able to opt in and stake and participate in Sanctum governance? So this is, I think, a bit of negative feedback and FUD that we got from the community. And I don't really know how fair it is. I'm still making up my own personal mind about what I think about this. But some people expressed concern that like people would take the deal, but then they would actively participate in governance. I guess my initial gut reaction is like, that's a good thing. Like, I don't know why that's a bad thing. Like, why is it a bad thing that people are would take their investor allocations that they earned, by the way? Like, I think that's one thing that's kind of inherent to a lot of people's arguments is that they almost somehow feel like people getting the tokens that they paid for is a bad thing. But it's also kind of like, bro, like they believed in Sanctum and or Socian, right, at a time where it was nothing. Like it was not a foregone conclusion that this business was going to work out. And like we're just very fortunate to be in a position that it has worked out to a very large extent. Like Sanctum is growing quarter after quarter, like the growth is insane. But again, like these investors earned their tokens. Like the baked in assumption that like somehow they don't deserve them, or it's like not a good thing that they would be using them, is also just kind of like, do you know what I mean? It's like it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting how people feel about like, if it's my tokens, I earned it, right? But if it's your tokens, then like you're a whale rugger, which is like kind of I don't know.
So
Psychology.
any good trading book about like doing it professionally, like the first half of the book is always dedicated to human psychology, right? Because you have such a confirmation bias that gets built into your thinking because you always have hindsight, right? So if you watch a football team win, you go, oh, I knew that they would win, because you're taking future information and putting it on your historical understanding, right? And
Yeah.
very few people have the risk appetite at early stage to like invest and stuff. Once it's a foregone conclusion, you're like, oh, of course I would invest in Sanctum, at that price back then, of course I would. But it's only because of where you are today that you do that. So like people do that all the time. You get a lot of that where it's like, oh, if I had that chance. And it's like, well, like very different situation for many people. And most people are not on the ultra early curve of a lot of stuff that is highly uncertain. And that's why there's an entire investor class there.
Yeah. And then also just a note from FP, investors are cloud holders just like any other. They own their tokens fair and square. Their tokens are unlocked. I see no reason why they shouldn't be able to participate in governance like everyone else. However, we do have a comment from a friend over here. His name is in the Cyrillic alphabet, Kaktabushivash. So I can't read his name, but I don't think it's Ahohim, unless, right? That looks like the Cyrillic alphabet, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it does look like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know how to pronounce her name phonetically, but anyways, what was your point? The idea is that early unlocks influence the amount of ASR rewards, and versus not early unlocks. You are incorrectly presenting this to the wide community. Okay, the idea is that early unlocks influence the amount of ASR rewards versus not early unlocks. Yeah, yeah, I get your point. I'm gonna go through the unlock schedule for now. And so it's not going to affect ASR 2, season 2, which is where we're currently at, right? Like there's 2 seasons of active staking rewards. One was for the first 3 months, which has already been accounted for and resolved, and those tokens have all been distributed. And the other is we're currently in season 2, is going to be winding down very soon, and I'll give you guys the unlock schedule. It would actually not affect ASR for season 2. If we do run ASR for season 3, TBD, then like certainly it would have effects on that. You are actually correct about that. I guess that my point is that I was hyper fixated on season 2. I apologize, did not mean to misrepresent. But you are correct. Like if we were to run future versions of ASR, like if a person were to take this deal and then like to put their tokens to work, but at the same time, like I still feel like they have the right, but I still feel like they have the right to use those tokens. And again, that is a risk. That's something that you would have to take into consideration, is like, do I want to, like, what are the negative consequence or potential consequences of a whale getting their early staked tokens and then using them to participate in governance to accumulate more cloud? But I almost feel like a whale accumulating more cloud is a good thing, right? Like
Yeah.
they're interested and they want to.
It's like, like if it's a good investor, you want them to continue to participate and do the things that they do. I agree on the dilution of the total pie, but like that comes down to like the economics here, right? Like fundamentally, if people take the deal, then you have to be more concerned about that if you have fewer people take the deal. But remember, they're unlocking every month anyway. So they could inject that into the ASR anyway. It just wouldn't be as like, it wouldn't be the full 70% that come up, right? Like it would be, that 9% over the 24 months. So it'll dilute either way. It's the same thing. Like the price may impact immediately, but over long term, do you get the net benefit?
Yeah. And last but not least, but if these tokens unlock early, wouldn't that mean that they'll likely be sold on the market, pushing the price down? Again, I think that there are a lot of assumptions that are baked into this, but like let's go through what James has said, right? Investors will be free to sell or not once unlocked. That is the premise of this proposal, ripping the band-aid off of supply overhang. I believe that this is a win-win-win because in scenario number one, it gives early investors the ability to unlock early and get access to their capital without 24 months, right? So like that's good for the investor, right? It also gives us, the Sanctum team, the ability to limit the plan of gradual unlocks, confining to a short and sharp band-aid ripping off, adding to circulating supply. And this will just be less certainty over the long run. And finally, it gives Sanctum more runway by adding these forfeited tokens to the Sanctum Reserve. I'm going to go over these operational details in a much more neat graphic that I just made before this stream. But anyways, Colin, I want to be respectful of your time, so like I just want to do a temperature check here. We actually went like 20 minutes over like how long you needed to be here. But like if you need to go, no problem. Like I can carry the rest of this forecast with us. But I like super appreciated your time and just like running through the proposal with us and like presenting all the different scenarios.
No, I appreciate that. I'm happy to hang on until this is over.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks, brother. So yeah, just a reminder to everyone, if you scan this QR code, you too can also go over to the Sanctum website, the research.sanctum.so, and just going to share that one more time for emphasis over here. You can see it's research.sanctum.so, and you can participate in our governance process. Let me just go over back to the slides. And yeah, well, you guys have asked us anything. I think we will actually, let's cover a couple more questions. Is there anything that I've missed? Okay, so again, to reiterate, how many investors are ready to take this offer? We already put this up, but so far 0 people that we've talked to, but we haven't talked to everybody, to be fair. Yeah, okay. Sorry, just scanning all of these. There are a lot of comments today. I really appreciate the thoughtful questions today, guys. Let's definitely continue to build up this culture of asking thoughtful questions as opposed to just slop. Oh, this is a little unrelated to governance, but is MetaDAO planning to launch an AI-powered governance assistant in the future, or stay user-friendly forever?
I think that if you're in the web application space, the technology space, and you're not thinking about AI and like what you can do with that, I know people are migrating from search over to ChatGPT because that's the information you want. So I think it's definitely in our thought process. I don't know that we have any initial plans. I'd love for somebody to build it out. But yeah, like I think that the future of technology is going to incorporate it heavily. So I'm on board to build an assistant to help people navigate these things.
That sounds like another Futarchy proposal. Everything is Futarchy, my friend.
Everything. Once you start looking at it that way, everything is. I will say that we use ChatGPT's API to summarize the proposals for you, the proposal contents for you. At the top, there's a little summary icon that will do that. So we do use some.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate that, by the way. And dude, I visited recently just because like I haven't been on the MetaDAO website in a while, and it's just like you're like always tinkering. Like, how are you? How do you stay sane?
Well, we haven't cracked it yet. I mean, we get a ton of feedback for the UI UX there, and it would be great if we had more Futarchy competitors out there that are like building things and the way people use and interact, and maybe we can crack it together. But it's such a small space right now that like it's not like I can borrow from somebody else right away. So, and like Sanctum is a like Sanctum's Funtarchy is a complete departure of that. So like it's interesting to see the feedback and the experience that people have with that, and we take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we have probably the most important question, which is the operational details. Like, let's say the proposal passes, right? Like, how long will it be open for investors? Basically, what Light is trying to ask is like, okay, but if it passes, like, what the heck does this look like? There's some information you should definitely know. So let's skip over to this slide over, well, what to expect next. Yeah, I'm gonna actually skip over to a different part of the pod, and I'll circle back. But like, what to expect? So the next steps for Cloud 005 obviously is that we have a 7 day deliberation that's starting from literally yesterday, right? So during this deliberation, you can make any comments or suggestions or changes. So in my mind, based on the entire discussion that we've had here, I would love to see people talk and haggle and argue about what percentage. Well, first of all, should we even do it? But like, there are certain details that I think are worth considering, right? So number one is like, where should the tokens go? Should they go into team reserve? Should they be burned? Should they be given to community? We've given you our thoughts on that. We would love to hear yours, right? If you agree, that's fine. But if you don't, like, we definitely want to hear from you, and the reasons why you feel the way that you feel. So I think where the tokens go is an interesting discussion point. I think another discussion point is what percentage of uh, uh, a discount do we want to give? So currently we want our investors to forfeit 30% of their tokens, which means that that removes uncertainty for at least 30% of their investment. Some people might be a lot more extreme, like FP in previous um, uh, comments had said that he would be okay with like a 0% discount, which I think is crazy. That's just my personal opinion. But like, certainly, like, everyone is entitled to their opinion. So like, some people, like FP is like, are totally fine with exploring the idea of doing like 0% discount. And other people might be like, no, like, this is only attractive if we can get investors. Like, I would only, like, first of all, I don't even like this proposal, but if an investor is willing to give up 70% of their tokens, then I'll think about it, right? Like, so that might be another point of view that's completely legitimate, right? Because you want more certainty, and like, this is for whatever reason, that's your bar for like an acceptable version of this proposal. So I think that's like a second area where people could kind of negotiate and debate. Colin, I'm wondering if you saw any other parts of the proposal that you think would be fun to haggle over.
Yeah, I think like how long the offer is available could be interesting, right? Like if you step up the, like you could do a dynamic, like I'm in favor of removing complexity, but it's worth to explore if there's like the trade-off there. So say, they have the 2 weeks to evaluate for this 30% right now. And then, on the next month, they could do the same thing. And then they accept a 40% discount. And then on the next month, they do a 50% discount, like, so you have that available at any time. Could be interesting, right? Like, you get more tokens back as the time goes on until, like they, like they're going to accept a 90% discount because they've moved into 6 months past the offer period of the remaining tokens. And that could be like an interesting way to keep it open to the point where then, like nobody's going to take 100%, like, yes, unlock my tokens and I get 0, right? So you kind of build that mechanism into it. Might be interesting because maybe people take different opinions at different times, and it's net beneficial to the DAO at any time to accept a discount on that. And so I think maybe that exploration. I think, pushing back and saying like, I would like you to talk to investors and get clarity now could be, another way that people could express this if they so choose. But yeah, I think that there's interesting things in this proposal. I think it's an interesting signaling proposal at the very least, like you started out with, which says, hey, listen, we did offer this to all of our investors. We did go out, we did, make this happen. So I think that that's, yeah, like at the core premise, I think it makes sense there.
Right, right. So again, like, we have this 7 day deliberation where like there are a lot of interesting points to debate. So like, to Colin's point, we could totally play around with a much more complex unlock structure, right? So instead of just like a flat 30%, it could even just be like more progressive discounts over time, right? So it's like an offer that gets worse and worse for you over time. But like if you're feeling the pressure and you want to sell, it's just kind of like you can give up more and more of your tokens, like up to 100%, which would be ridiculous. But you, for the sake of argument, like you could totally do that, right? And we can also talk about like the percentage discount that we want to give just in general. Like if you do believe in a flat structure, like is there any version like of this proposal? Like everybody would vote for a proposal in which it's all like we want you to give up 90% of your tokens, right? Like because it's like okay, fine, like you're unlocking immediately, but you're unlocking only 10% of your tokens. So like I don't care, and now I can take the other 90% and do whatever the heck I want with it. So like there's definitely a hypothetical range of like a percentage that, but at the same time we want to balance like not insulting our partners, because like it is incredibly insulting to an early investor who has believed in you from day one, and then you go to him and say like we want you to unlock all your tokens and give it to you right now, but then it would be like a 80% discount. I don't know, that feels a little disrespectful, and like these are people that we actually have believed in us, so like there is a balancing act here. So that's like another thing that we could definitely negotiate amongst ourselves. And again, we would be voting on this in a week's time, right? So trading will begin on August 19th, if I'm not mistaken, or even the 20th. TBD on this. This is very much TBD, but roughly this is what the timeline looks like. So again, finally, to answer this question, so I wanted to give you all this context before we answered this, but like what were to happen if the proposal were to pass, right, after we've done all this deliberation? Well, James had written this very, very thorough explanation of the key dates and timelines. I actually just went for like this is beautiful and very well explained, but let's go for something more visual, right? So let's say from the first, so this first dot over here is the proposal is passed. So this is the CLOUD-005 timeline, assuming that the proposal has passed, right? So we would have 7 days as a team to do investor outreach. And then the current proposal states that we would opt in this decision-making program. Investors would have 14 days to opt in or to opt out. And afterwards, we would notify the Cloud fam some point in that week. You might be wondering like why it's not just like immediately after 14 days. Well, like as with any human endeavor, shit happens. And so we just need the buffer time, right? So we need time to get our ducks in a row and to notify people about like which investors have opted in if any. And last but not least, we would unlock those tokens again within a 7-day window. So really what we're looking at is from start to finish, unlock token. Like, so if the proposal were to pass, what this ultimately means is that this is a 5-week process, right? Anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks for the token unlocks. I think that we'd be wanting to be a little bit more conservative, meaning that pushing the token unlock date a little bit farther as opposed to closer, but definitely all negotiable. Like, I want to be really clear to everybody on this call. The whole point of governance is that people participate, right? So this is all, and like, we call this the IDDV framework. We've talked about this several times on previous Sanctum forecasts, but like we follow Sanctum governance, like a very easy framework called IDDV. It's not sexy, I know. I should come up with a better framework name, but it is 4 easy steps. Number one is that we love it when community members come up with ideas, and then they take those ideas and they draft a proposal based on them. We are currently in the 3rd step, which is deliberation. And again, deliberation is a 7-day period where you actually have the ability to affect the outcome, not about whether or not it's pass or fail, but a version of the proposal that you think would be attractive, right? You might like the basic contours of the proposal, but also simultaneously believe that it is not the best version of the proposal that it could be. Colin, I'm wondering, have you seen this implemented with other futarchies?
Yes, we've seen it with Mountain proposal, like getting feedback. We ourselves put in into the Discord like a proposal draft stage, and then like I'm always getting feedback from key community members before we go live to, hey, I want to double check my numbers and make sure everything makes sense, and then B, pick up on any contentious points to be able to address them. So Yeah, I think it's an important part of governance and crafting proposals, regardless of the structure, like the fundamental structure of whether you're using Futarchy or Realms or anything else. But
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that I see come through is like has some sort of like system, but doesn't necessarily have the feedback that you guys have, as far as like people coming into the
Mhm.
forums, asking the thoughtful questions and getting that feedback, and then you guys coming in and saying like, okay, we need to think about this and reshape it.
Yeah, right. We were very fortunate because the Sanctum Research Forum is actually one of the more active research forums in all of Solana, and like not everybody has that, like people who actually give a crap. So thank you very much to the Cloud fam. In fact, we already have a one suggestion from our friend over here. Who's asking, could we ask the investors for 2 to 3 options? For example, investor indicates interest in accepting 30%. The second investor accepts 35%. So like we can have different ranges from like 30 to 35 or 40. My point here is write all of these comments on the Sanctum Research Forum. We will consolidate all of them and take them all into consideration. And depending on what we think people, because the whole point is that like it's not that we want this proposal to pass, which I think might be confusing to the community. They're like, wait, what the heck? Like, don't you want this proposal to pass? It's like that is a outcome, right? But like what we want truly is to do what is logical. Like that's what we want, right? We want to do whatever the market tells us to do and what will be most bullish for cloud. So like I just kind of feel like get all your opinions out there, and like we would try to craft a proposal that we think has the highest chance of passing, because like why would you craft a proposal that has the highest chance of failing? That makes no sense. Like you'd want to do the inverse. But at the same time we will accept,
Let me
yeah.
stop you there. I think it's like you want to craft a proposal that you need a decision to be made on that you may not have all the information for, right? Like we raised a proposal back, I think it was February of this year, to create a launch pad, because people were like, Pump is not delivering value back into the Solana ecosystem. If you created a token, governed it under Futarchy, that was a 50-50. That could have been directionally the way that we went back then. We didn't build it. And then we raised another proposal to say, hey, here's how we envision how fundraisers should go. But like, we didn't know. And, like it was contentious. And so we said, we're not the best decision makers. Give it to you guys to like hash it out. And so I think that that's the important bit about Futarchy that I think's pretty cool, because you're not asking 16 delegates to vote in your interest. You are saying genuinely, hey, I don't know, let's get this out there and see what the market believes.
Yeah. I would love for Funtarchy or just Sanctum in general to be, and or the Sanctum DAO to be the place where the most high quality questions are being asked, right? And it's like even as we disagree and bicker and argue and debate respectfully about these questions, it's like the exercise itself has value, right? Well, first of all, it's bonding, because just like a very basic human thing. Like I disagree with you, but like we've spent time together in the trenches, and so even though we disagree, it's still respectful, and like I understand where you're coming from, you get where I'm coming from, so we're stronger for it, right? So there's immense cultural value in just even having those debates. But number two, like obviously it will help refine your thinking for future proposals. It's like everything builds on top of everything else previously, at least if you're doing your job correctly. um, so again, we have this IDDV framework, which is, oh yeah, go ahead, Colin.
No. Sorry. I was
Oh,
unmuting.
oh, sure. So we have this IDDV framework. So idea, draft, deliberation, and of course, vote. So like this is the very basic framework that we use for Sanctum governance proposals. We are currently in the third stage, deliberation. And to just a gentle reminder, how the next steps work is that we have the 7-day deliberation period from August 12th, or this is always tricky. It just kind of depends on your time zone. But like, anyways, starting from today. We have the 7-day deliberation, and then trading will begin, sometime next week. And then what happens if the proposal passes? Of course, it would be about a 5-week process from proposal passing to token unlocks. This is one more gentle reminder that you can scan this QR code. It will take you to research.sanctum.so, which is this beautiful website with a proposal that has been drafted by James Hanley the Manly. And if you look at oh my God, look at this. Over 600 views, 150 likes. I mean, like this is, you don't see this very often in a lot of DAOs. And if you look through a lot of these, comments and questions, like these are actually thoughtful questions that are being asked by the community with great participation. So get your Ahohim. I know I am pronouncing your name incorrectly. Please don't murder me. I apologize. But if you want to get your comments over here, we will definitely be taking those into consideration. What's up, Colin?
No, yeah, just people's names in crypto is always funny.
Yes, that is true. Of course, just one more gentle reminder, never miss out on another forecast. We have yet another QR code for you to scan. This is for our Luma page. We always love to have the forecast included into your calendar or your email inboxes. So even if you miss it on crypto Twitter, you will get a reminder on your calendar, and you also get a reminder in your email for whenever we have another forecast. So really, really encourage you to participate in these. I think that participating in Sanctum forecasts are an incredible source of alpha. Just to give you one data point, for the ASR rewards for season 1, we had 3 different votes, and people who were staking their cloud, I think, got anywhere from 40 to 50% boost in their cloud bags, which is like insane, right? Like to get a 40 or 50% boost. I don't know if that's going to happen again, because I think that people are aware of how lucrative this is. And the only way that you can learn and to participate and arm yourself with knowledge, which is very important, is to freaking attend these forecasts. So I'd love to just thank the 700 people that are watching the stream and joining us on this forecast and learning all about Futarchy. Every single one of you is like super important to this social experiment. And with that, I would like to end today's forecast. We absolutely love you all, and thank you so much for starting your day with us. I know that it's like super early in the morning. Now it's almost it's like mid-morning for you. You've been like 2 hours on the stream. Like I owe you so many favors. Like you've always been super kind to me, Colin.
No, it's great. I want to talk about this stuff. I want to share. I want to answer questions, and the best way to do that is to get people out there and explain it. That for at least for now, I don't have any fancy graphics or any things that have cracked the code yet. I've found that spending time with people has been the number one net benefit to convince people and have them understand. So thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm glad we got to chat this morning.
Yes. Okay. All right, take it easy. Let's please give a big thank you to Colin and just like W's in the chat for MetaDAO, because honestly, like we couldn't do this without our partners. We obviously are not the pioneers of this new governance system. And I love the way that a Prophet puts it, which is that like this is the first time since Athens that we've really experimented with a new form of governance. And of course, there are going to be so many different variations and ways that Futarchy can be implemented, but you guys are true pioneers doing it on the best chain on earth. So thank you so much for your time, Colin. W's in the chat for Colin, everybody. Take it easy, guys. Adios.